everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the first day of the MLB Draft as much as we have here at Baseball America. It's midnight, and hey, let's keep this going for a little while. You know, we've got to analyze day one of the draft. We have 70-something, 78, 79 picks in the fold. And so what we're going to do here is rapid fire, just some quickie thoughts on each team's draft. And I'll probably end up taking some questions too. But we're going to do this in alphabetical order. So first off, Arizona Diamondbacks. Arizona Diamondbacks take three players: Matt McLain, Jake McCarthy, Alek Thomas. The thing that stands out about this Diamondbacks draft is this is a spread it around draft. You know, we've had teams that, you know, obviously front load and they're going to spend everything on the first player. I wouldn't be shocked at all if the first supplemental first and second round picks here all got similar money. Again, that's just a prediction. That's no great insight I have there. But Alek Thomas is a guy that we would not have been surprised if he'd have gone in the first round. He ends up going 63rd overall. Matt McLain is a guy we would have not been surprised if he'd have gone in the second round, and he goes 25 overall. Jake McCarthy is a guy also that we had pegged as kind of a back of the first round to supplemental first round pick. They obviously get two outfielders and a shortstop. They get some bats in this draft class, and so that's where the Diamondbacks sit after day one. Moving on to the Braves. Obviously, we have a lot of Braves fans who usually ask questions on our Facebook Lives. And the Braves get Carter Stewart at 8. That was a player that we had predicted they would take for a long time. And he has, as we talked about on the broadcast, as Carlos did and as Jim did and Jonathan and all, great curveball, extremely projectable, but also a guy who has present stuff, right? High school right-hander. Most teams, when you look at a high school right-hander, you say, uh-oh, they took a high school right-hander in the first round. Can't say that with the Braves because the Braves have taken guys like Mike Soroka, Ian Anderson, and they've developed them. So credit to the Braves for that. And so you kind of see why they would go the high school prep pitching route. And then Grayson Janista, second rounder, 49th pick. If this draft had been held last August, September, Janista would have easily been a first-round pick. But he kind of backed up a little bit this spring. But to get him at 49, you have to feel pretty good about that if you're the Braves. Going on to the Orioles. Orioles was a team that it was hard to kind of get a handle on where they were going to go in this draft on day one. Grayson Rodriguez with the 11th pick. Rodriguez was one of the biggest pop-up guys in the high school draft class this year. Was already a guy everyone knew about last year, but he was better this spring. He showed that pretty consistently in Texas. And so he ends up going off the board a little earlier than maybe we thought, but by just a few spots, not a massive reach or anything like that. And then Caden Grenier is one of the best shortstops in the class as far as pure college shortstop. There are guys who have better bats than Caden Grenier, but Caden Grenier is the guy who moved Nick Madrigal to another position. So that's something to be said for Caden Grenier. Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox, we kind of had kept predicting Seth Beer to the Red Sox. I think that they ended up actually getting a better pure bat. They got a bat who has some defensive ability as well in Tristan Casas. Tristan Casas, 26th pick. They list him as a third baseman. A lot of belief that eventually he ends up at first. But he's a below-average third baseman who maybe you could send out at that position. Maybe he can stick there. But if he can't, he probably ends up being an above-average to plus defender at first base, which still has value. And it's just, but you're drafting the bat, and Tristan Casas has a really good bat. They go back to the high school well in the second round with Nick Decker as well. The Red Sox are going bats here, and when you start a draft with Tristan Casas, that's a good way to start it, especially they weren't picking to 26. They got a high school bat that if he'd have gone 15th, we wouldn't have been surprised at all. Moving on to the Chicago Cubs. Hey, the Chicago Cubs didn't take all pitchers. We've seen in past years where they have taken all pitchers, but they've also obviously had a lot of success in the first round taking hitters. And what we see here, 4 picks because they had the last 2 picks of day one. Nico Horner in the first round, a little bit of surprise to us. Nico Horner, we'd heard, had some helium, the Stanford shortstop, but we didn't expect that helium would carry him all the way to 24. Brennan Davis, an athletic outfielder in the second round, and then a pair of compensatory picks, Cole Rodner and Paul Richon, who both, this was an interesting draft to me. I want to see kind of where they go on day 2 as well. again, we didn't see Horner as a back of the first round guy. He is a pretty solid hitting middle infielder who has a chance to stay at shortstop. Brennan Davis is the kind of athletic outfielder who sometimes those guys really blossom. But there's some they pick a little later, but there's not that one hang your hat on guy to me in this draft class yet. But again, that's just my opinion. So moving on to the White Sox. The White Sox, 2 picks. Nick Madrigal at the 4th pick, Steele Walker at 46. We would not have been shocked to see Steele Walker taken at the very, very back end of the first round. But the draft obviously is going to be around Nick Madrigal, who was announced as a shortstop. Makes sense to send him out that way, see if he can do it. Madrigal is the best college hitter in this draft class. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. I'm not the only one saying that. We're getting that from scouts, but I think everyone's saying that. The power is the question, but really the power is a question of how much impact is he going to have. A lot of guys in recent years have exceeded their power expectations. Nick Madrigal does that. He's a star. If he doesn't, he's just probably a very solid big league player, there's a lot to be said for that. And then Steele Walker, if you don't like Steele Walker, you think of him as a 4th outfielder. If you do like him, he's better than that. But it's hard to find scouts who don't think he's a big leaguer of some sort. And again, there are definitely people who think he's a regular, scouts who think he's a regular. So that's what the White Sox get on day 1. Moving on to the Reds. Reds have 3 picks. They go with Jonathan India with their 1st pick, then Lyon Richardson, then Josiah Gray. Jonathan India, I think in our last mock, we didn't put India to them, but we kept mocking India as a likely landing spot to the Reds. You got to kind of like them going back to that well. They did it with Nick Senzel. We say it every year, but top performing SEC top of the draft hitters, track record on those in recent years has been really good. That includes guys like Alex Bregman, Andrew Benintendi. That's who the Reds took last year. Nick Senzel, who also was primarily a third baseman. Do think India can play second base as well. Long term, that's still a logjam because they have a third baseman, Eugenio Suarez, locked up long term. They also have moved Senzel to second base because of that. Maybe maybe India, who can play some short, has played short before, could look at shortstop with him. But if not, at some point you end up having 3 middle infielders for 2 spots. But those problems usually end up working themselves out. You want talent. You'll figure out what to do with the talent down the road. And then I got to talk about Josiah Gray because I got to see him in the first week of the college season this year. Fascinating story. Best pitcher in Division II this year. Shortstop who moved to the mound kind of in summer league a couple of years ago. Moved full time this year and really did dominate. And a higher ceiling college pitcher than most of the college pitchers because you look at him and say, there still is something in there because he's just really adjusting to pitching. Rolling along, let's go to the Cleveland Indians. Cleveland Indians, you've got Noah Naylor, Ethan Hankins, Letty Torres, Nick Sandlin. This is the having money to spend. They didn't pick until pick 29, but they had an extra pick at 35, a supplemental pick at 41, and a second-round pick. What that allowed them to do, Naylor is, again, one of the better high school bats in this class. Some defensive questions about whether he's going to play third or catcher, but he probably is going to play a premium defensive position, whichever one it ends up being. So that's not really a knock. That's actually like a plus for him. Ethan Hankins, coming into the year, could have been a top 3, top 2, probably not number 1 because he's a high school right-hander, but a top 5 pick, let's just be conservative and say. Had a little shoulder injury, but at his best, what we saw last summer, he was easily a top 10 pick, and he falls to 35, but I expect he'll be paid probably when they come to an agreement. He'll be paid much better than a guy going 35th. Letty Torres, we wrote about extensively this year as well. Again, another high upside play. And then Nick Sandlin going the other direction. Nick Sandlin had as good a college season as any pitcher in this class. Does a little bit funky. It's a little low. It's a very low slot, but with legit stuff. And the Indians have had a pretty good track record of taking productive college pitchers and not only doing that, but often getting them to be a little bit better in pro ball. Seen that with Shane Bieber, who throws harder now than he did when he was in college, has kept the exceptional command. Nick Sandlin is a guy who kind of fits his. He's going to pitch in the big leagues probably in some role. The role is to be determined. Colorado Rockies. Ryan Rollison, Grant Levine, and Mitchell Kilkenny. Kind of like this draft as a spread it around draft again. Rollison, a college lefty who had productivity and solid stuff, who you get at 22. That's a very good spot for that. Very good landing spot for Rollison, but very good for the Rockies. And then Levine, guy that kept getting pushed to either the Yankees or the Rockies. I wouldn't say pick the pocket of the Yankees, but when the Yankees didn't take him in the first round, which would have been likely a very well below slot deal, kind of knew that there was a pretty good chance that he wasn't going to get around to the Yankees' next pick. That's what the Rockies do. We have him ranked a little lower than where he was at 42. He is a Northeastern high school bat who's bat first. I mean, it's not an athletic center fielder or something like that. Those are hard guys to really rank because there's a little less track record there. And you're looking at the reality is this spring was not a fun time to try to scout guys in the upper Midwest or the Northeast because of a lot of a lingering winter. You put that together, and maybe he ends up being a little better than where we have him ranked, but that's where we don't have him ranked as high as where the Rockies took him. Mitchell Kilkenny, very productive college pitcher. Again, kind of spreading the risk kind of move. So moving on to the team that had the number one pick in the draft, the Detroit Tigers. Kudos to the Tigers. They take the number one player in the draft. Casey Mize, there was some talk. Are they going to go Casey Mize? Or are they going to go Joey Bart? Or are they going to go some other direction? When there's a clear number one player in the draft, take the number one player. That's what the Tigers did. There's talk, how quickly can Casey Mize move? He's already over 100 innings. He's still pitching. He'll be in the Super Regionals next week, probably against Florida. They're winning right now in their regional championship game. With that, I mean, it's not shocking if he ends up having 110, 115, maybe in 120 innings. That's not going to leave many innings to work with this year. Wouldn't be surprised if he barely pitches. Last year, in a similar situation, the Tigers essentially shut down Alex Fado after a very long college season. So a rebuilding Tigers team does not need to move Mize that fast, but at the same time, he will be a very fast mover once he gets to a full season next year, because the command is really exceptional for his age. The control's really exceptional. That split fingers really is a plus pitch. Fastball, 93 to 96. It's at least plus. He has really a multitude of other pitches, a cutter, a slider. He's a very advanced pitcher. Parker Meadows, again, high school outfielder from Georgia. Really good year for Georgia prep class this year as far as guys going out early. But you kind of go two different directions. You get the certainty, and then you go a little bit more upside play in the second round. Houston Astros. Okay, I know the internet blew up because, understandably, Seth Beer goes to the Astros at 28. Man, if Seth Beer does not feel like a Houston Astros pick. The guy can hit. What else can he do? Well, let's just talk about it. The guy can hit. The guy can hit for average. He hits for power. He walks more than he strikes out. Where is he going to play defensively? The words DH work really well because it's an American League team. That's probably where he fits long term. You can send him out as a first baseman. He's not been very good when he's tried to do that. You can send him out as an outfielder. He's not very good when he's tried to do that. I mean, yes, there are going to be more ability to work with him to improve those things in pro ball than there is in college, where you have the hours restrictions and all those things. But at the same time, he's drafted for the bat. You expect the bat to be pretty good. And then Jason Schroeder, again, you get a high upside, talented high school arm. You get him in the second round. That's a perfect spot for a lot of these guys, because I can't tell you that the Jason Schroeders and the other guys who went in the second round aren't going to end up being just as good, if not better, than the guys who go in the first round, because there's not a whole lot of separation between these guys. We're talking about all these guys who are taking today high school pitchers have plus stuff and some semblance of control. There usually is a hickey or two, but high school pitchers are volatile in general. So moving on, Kansas City Royals. It's the college pitcher draft. Kansas City Royals had 5 picks today. They picked 18, 33, 34, 40, 58. And they went college pitcher, college pitcher, college pitcher, college pitcher, college pitcher. Can't fault them for doing that. They went high school pitcher, back-to-back drafts, first round, their first 2 picks a few years ago. And right now, that's really not worked out. Probably the best of those guys is Scott Blewett and Foster Griffin, and both of those guys are back in the rotation starters at best, probably. But this year, they had money, and they used it. Brady Singer goes 18. Brady Singer was better than the 18th player in this draft class. He's going to get paid probably like he's better than the 18th player in this draft class. Jackson Kowar goes 33. His teammate at Florida. Jackson Kowar is better than the 33rd player in this draft class. He'll probably be paid like that. Daniel Lynch blew up, did nice things late in the season. ACC tournament, which was in front of Dayton Moore and Lonnie Goldberg and a whole slew of Royals scouts. But I do think he's probably the one that helps you save a little money, that gets you Singer and Kowar. And then they go back with Chris Bubik, who was, again, a very productive, little less ceiling, but a very productive college pitcher. Jonathan Bolin, sinker baller guy who the secondaries need to get better, but a really good, really big innings-eating body. Again, they diversification of risk by both taking college guys and taking a ton of them. Be shocking if the Royals don't get some big league production out of this draft class. We'll see how many guys they get out of it. Los Angeles Angels. Los Angeles Angels love upside. That's the thing that they have come around to. For a while there, it used to be that you'd say the Los Angeles Angels love to not draft. They would be sitting there. We get done day one. It's like, well, the Angels will be on the clock tomorrow. Or the Angels had one pick today, and then they'll be on the clock again tomorrow because they give away a lot of picks for free agents. They really didn't do a whole lot in the draft for a few years there. But they're back. They have a slew of high upside athletic outfitters in the system already. And then they added Jordan Adams today. Then they added shortstop Jeremiah Jackson in the second round as well. Both of those guys fit that. Up the middle guys who have both defensive value, speed, and a chance to hit. Jordan Adams is 17. You're going to pay him to get out of... He was a two-way guy who could have been an absolutely legit NFL prospect maybe down the road if he went to North Carolina and played wide receiver. But you take him 17, you're doing that to say, give up football, say goodbye to that. The thing about that is you're going to pay a premium for that. So more of your allotment is going to go to Jordan Adams than it would to an equivalent talent who didn't have the two-sport option. We'll be interested to see how that goes. But Adams and Jackson, two of the higher ceiling high school guys in this draft class, the Angels get both of them. Los Angeles Dodgers, 2 picks, 30th and 68. JT Ginn and Michael Grove. Okay, do you want to you want to go outside, take a little risk? Hello, Los Angeles Dodgers. First pick, JT Ginn, one of the best fastballs in the class. Extremely lively fastball. It takes off. Also has a really good breaking ball. Those 2 pitches, there is some concern. Is he reliever, starter long term? He's a little smaller. If you like him, you say he's a Sonny Gray. If you don't like him, you say he's a reliever. But there's risk there because he's a high school pitcher who throws really hard and the delivery has a little effort to it. The risk with Michael Grove is he didn't pitch this year. TJ recovery. But when you saw him last year, it was really, really good. He would have been easily a top 100 prospect on our board if he had been healthy. I think he was 271 because he wasn't. But we in the write-up, and when we talk about him at 271, it's like, no, this guy's really good. Just a lot of uncertainty because of the health. The Dodgers are willing to take that risk. You probably end up getting him at a pretty good deal at 68. You get a guy who you would maybe not have been able... If he'd been healthy this year, he may have been pitched his way above going off the board at 68. So down to the Miami Marlins. Miami Marlins, Connor Scott, first round, Osiris Johnson, Will Banfield in the supplemental second. Connor Scott, athletic center fielder, left-handed bat. You got to like that we kind of thought that this was a very logical pick for the Marlins. They get a Florida guy. They get a guy from the same high school as Kyle Tucker. And then they come back, Osiris Johnson. Again, the Marlins, we didn't know if the Marlins were going to stay being the same thing they were before or not. The Marlins go upside here, Scott and Osiris Johnson. Then Will Banfield, high school prep catchers. High school catchers is a risky demographic generally. However, Banfield's really good defensively. We'll see how well he hits, but the defensive skills are there to at least potentially be a backup, maybe more. And we'll see how that develops. Milwaukee Brewers. Love this Milwaukee Brewers draft. Love it, love it, love it. Had a story today at Baseball America. Talked to Team USA 18U National Director Matt Blood. Former scout himself, actually former BA staffer as well, did this draft coverage now several years ago. But his point is Bryce Terang, Joe Gray, these are 2 guys who've kind of been analyzed to death because everyone's seen them for a long time. They're not the shiny new toy who's kind of just popped on the scene. If this draft had been held a year ago, Bryce Terang would have been a top 5 pick. He was considered the best high school bat in the draft class. Went out this spring, and he's been fine, but he hasn't been as good as expected. And especially if you went back to where he was 2 years ago, and scouts kind of have a projection, he's going to go like this, he's going to be steadily improving. He hasn't improved at the rate that everyone expected he would. So because of that, he falls. That being said, there may be a little bit of draft fatigue, over awareness of a guy. He's been dissected in every different way. He is a legit shortstop. He can run. He can hit. That's a lot to get at 21. Joe Gray goes at 60. We get Justin Upton comps on Joe Gray if it all comes together. There are questions about the hit tool. There are much less questions about the athleticism, about the power, about the defense in the outfield, and he can run. Those are all good things to have. To get him at pick 60, he's not the guy you're basing your draft off of. That's a great pick to get as your second guy. There's a little risk there, but hey, you're getting high upside, and you have Bryce Terang to be the less risky guy. And then Micah Bello, who, from Hawaii, let's be honest, there's always a little risk when you talk about Hawaii prep player. There's not a lot of track record with those guys. There are guys, but there's less track record with those guys. But Bello is a guy that, give Kyle Glazer a shout out. He was a guy who was really on him for us. Bello is an interesting name to watch as well. I kind of like this for the Brewers because they have still a pretty solid system. This is kind of we're going to take a few years again. They'll move a little slower, but we're very high school heavy today. Much like the high upside draft they took a couple of years ago, which Monte Harrison led. Moving on, Minnesota Twins. Trevor Larnach in the first round, Ryan Jeffers in the second. Larnach had one of the best power seasons in college baseball this year, and it's not pull power. It's oppo power. It's up the middle power. A lot of scouts believe that kind of bodes well for the long term. You're not just pull power is not as a lot of scouts believe does not translate as well as the guys who can actually hit it out to all fields. Ryan Jeffers was the guy, I think it was the 270s on our 296, I believe, actually, on a BA 500. I would expect that's going to be a money saver, although you don't want to see a lot of money savers in the second round. But the guy can hit. The question is can he catch? And if he can't catch, can he hit enough that you don't care about him not being able to catch? I would assume the Twins think he really can catch, but I'll be interested to see where day 3 they go, because you kind of wonder if that pick means that there's some other things planned down the road. New York Mets take Jared Kelenic at 6, Simeon Woods Richardson at 48. Kelenic was a guy who is one of the better high school bats in this class. Really, the question becomes, is he's a 5-tool guy, but all of the 5 tools are more average to above average than plus to plus plus. That's still really good. If you believe in him, he can play in center field. He's kind of think of him as maybe, production-wise, kind of a Christian Yelich type. If you think he's in the corner, there's still enough power. The power may end up being the best thing for Kelenic. It could end up being better than what I'm talking about here. Maybe I'm selling a little bit short. He may have the power to be a right fielder, but you can find scouts who say maybe he ends up being a little bit tweener. That'd be the concern. But overall, very well-rounded high school bat that everyone's seen for a very long time. Key player for USA national team, multiple years, been on the showcase circuit. A lot less risk than you would normally say for a Wisconsin high school hitter, because everyone's seen him, and he also played this spring against upper-level competition in the upper Midwest, even if he had to wait till about April to get out of the field because it kept snowing. Simeon Woods Richardson, again, we talk about the second-round high school arms. He's one that you look at and say, again, could he end up being better than some of those guys that go above him? Absolutely. It's hard to kind of separate that high school pitching class. There's a lot of depth of it in the second round. Simeon Woods Richardson, very much one of those guys who very much fit in that. New York Yankees, they go catcher. Anthony Siegler, Josh Breaux, which is interesting because they go catcher, and both the catchers they take could also pitch. Siegler could actually pitch right, could pitch left, and could switch hit and can catch. But they taken him as a catcher. They're taking for the bat. Josh Breaux, they're taking for the bat. It is at least probably 70 raw power. It's a 70 arm, if not an 80. It's 98 off the mound, although he did that very infrequently because Josh Breaux wants to catch. By all accounts, everyone you talk to, Josh Breaux wants to catch. And then after the scouts say that, they say, but you know what? If he ends up not hitting, I'm very comfortable if you end up moving him to the mound that he'll be very good on the mound. He'll be 98 to 100, and he'll be a reliever who will move very quickly. So I think Josh Breaux, it'll be interesting to see. You're going to be tracking what he does as a hitter because there's going to be power. But a couple of years ago, I'm going to shout out I'm a little tired, Cardinals power hitter who moved to the mound a couple of years ago, blew up in the New York Penn League, Rowan Wick. Rowan Wick, kind of a guy like that would be a kind of a potential comparison. Devin Fisher, So thank you, Josh Norris. Appreciate it. Oakland A's. Oakland A's they were the ones who had the story of the top 10 picks because they had 3 picks. They go Kyler Murray, Jamison Hanna, and Jeremy Ironman. Kyler Murray was the wild card, the absolute wild card because he could go anywhere from top 10 pick, which is what he did, to not being drafted because teams were going to wait another year because he really wanted to play football. The A's are taking a little bit of a risk here. By all accounts, he's already said what's going to happen is he's going to go off and play football this fall, but he is basically going to be an A. So that's kind of a safe farewell to college football. The reality is there still is the two-sport status where you can portion out the payments to a two-sport player. So the A's will not probably cut the full bonus check to Kyler Murray when they do work out the deal. They'll spread that out over the next several years. And if Kyler Murray did decide, no, I'm going football, they would not be out all the money, but they will be out all the slot. The slot that they have at 9 goes right away. So there is a little risk there. There's obviously the risk that he could get hurt this fall. There's obviously the risk with a football player that if he goes off next year and struggles, that there could be, I should really stay with football. That said, had a scout tell me that Kyler Murray may have the best bat speed in this draft class. He made massive strides this year. This guy is legitimately a baseball player. He's not a football player just getting out on a baseball field. And he did all this spring with a workload that would wear out anybody. So we haven't even seen what a fresh Kyler Murray can do. And the thing that I do like what the A's did here, I think that is still a little bit of reach at 9. But Hanna at 50 is a great pick because he's a guy who could have easily gone 35, 40, 45 in this draft class. Well-rounded center fielder. Jeremy Ironman I love at 70. Love that pick. Ironman is a guy who, if this draft had been held last year, he would have gone way higher than this. He had a massive power year last year. May be able to stay at shortstop. If not, he's going to be an above-average defender, plus defender, maybe even at third or second. And there's legit power there. He made some adjustments to his swing this year, stance. Didn't all work out that well. Needs to adjust those back probably. But there's still a lot to like there. Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies, 1 pick, Alec Bohm. Then they're done. Wait to see you tomorrow. Bohm, is one of the better power bats in this draft class. The question is whether they're going to be able to stay at third base long term. Had scouts describe him as plays a little tall, a little bit high-waisted to play third long term. You can find other scouts who think he will be able to stick there. If he can, he's a left fielder or first baseman. But there's a lot of belief that he also has the ability to hit enough to play either left field or first base. By the way, if he plays left field, he's probably a better left fielder than Rhys Hoskins, just for what it's worth. Sorry I don't have as much stuff on the Phillies, but they only had 1 pick. Pittsburgh Pirates. 3 picks for the Pirates. Travis Swaggerty at 10. Gunnar Hoglund at 36. Braxton Ashcraft at 51. Swaggerty at 10, we were kind of thinking Swaggerty was a guy who was going to fall. That said, he had a great summer last year. We still had him, I think, like 12 on our final BA 500. We had heard a little bit that maybe he was falling from that. The question with Travis Swaggerty is how good is the bat? Scouts have generally really liked the bat, but this spring, a little bit too much swing and miss. Seemed to get a little power hungry. It didn't pay off in power. It did cost him in lower average. There is a little bit of a concern. You take a college hitter, 10th overall, who did not hit 300 this year at South Alabama. Scouts do bring that up. That said, Everyone coming into the year thought of him as one of the best college bats in this draft class. There's athleticism there as well. And so that's where they're going with that. Gunnar Hoglund, we could talk all day about his control. He didn't walk anybody this year. He walked two batters. I've seen guys do that in their first two batters they faced in a game. Gunnar Hoglund has control. He also has solid stuff. He's one of these prep pitchers we talk about who you're drafting a pitcher with solid stuff. You're not drafting top of the scale stuff and then hoping he maintains it. Gunnar Hoglund, you're drafting solid stuff and hoping he gets even a little bit better. Braxton Ashcraft, again, there were a lot of Texas high school right-handers in this draft class. Ashcraft fits in that group with Simeon Woods Richardson and a couple of other guys where you say, there's a lot of projection, there's a lot of possibilities there. And especially, again, he's your third pick in the draft. You are mitigating your risk to an extent. San Diego Padres, A.J. Preller's always one of the ones that everyone, when you're talking about where's the draft going to go, you're often trying to figure out where A.J. Preller's going to go. And where did he go? He goes with Ryan Weathers. He decides, he had the choice. Your Liberatore was on the mount, on the board as well, although, as we'll talk about in a minute, Matthew Liberatore probably had a pretty high price tag. But by all accounts, Ryan Weathers at worst was the number 2 high school left-hander in this draft class. You can find guys who say he might be right there with Liberatore. Maybe a little bit better pure stuff. Does have a pedigree of a dad who pitched in the big leagues, David Weathers. Had an incredible season, was the Gatorade High School Player of the Year. Xavier Edwards. I love Xavier Edwards. Their second pick, 38th pick overall. Big league leadoff hitter is what a lot of guys expect. A lot of scouts expect him to be. The hands work exceptionally well in the middle of the infield. The arm maybe ends up moving him to second. But if he gets on base like he should and plays the defense he should, he's an above-average defensive plus defensive second baseman who also at the same time, again, has on-base skills. And Grant Little, their supplemental second-round pick, the pick they basically bought in a trade with the Twins to get back the pick that they lost for Eric Hosmer. Grant Little can really hit. There are some questions about where he can play defensively. Left field, probably the most likely position, although you could get a little aggressive with it. Try to put him back in the dirt, see if he can handle a middle infield or a third base, second base or third base. But the main thing he does is hits. It's more hit over power, but very productive hitter. San Francisco Giants, Joey Bart and Sean Jelly. For the purposes of Linwood and Josh and all who are having to be here with me, I will keep my Sean Jelly comments to a reasonable length. Joey Bart, who they take 2 overall. You like the fact that they take Joey Bart now. You don't draft for need. You never draft for need. That being said, Buster Posey is at the point in his career that he will probably be about being done being an everyday catcher right around the time that Joey Bart should be ready. That works out pretty well. Joey Bart is a more physical specimen, more physical than Buster Posey. He's not the athlete Buster Posey is. There are very few catchers who are the athlete that Buster Posey is. But there's legit power there as well. He runs his team well. He calls his own pitches. He does all those things that you look for. If Joey Bart is this physical kind of rock of a specimen, Sean Hagelli is a little different. He's 6'11". He's a skinny 6'11", although he's filled out some. It's a very skinny. But he is an exceptionally athletic 6'11". Usually when you talk about 6'11", you're talking about a guy who has no idea yet how to maintain his delivery, has no idea how to control his limbs from pitch to pitch. That's not Sean Jelly. Sean Jelly has a freakishly good pickoff move for a 6'11" dude. You watch a guy like Tyler Glasnow, not trying to pick on Tyler Glasnow, but you watch Tyler Glasnow try to pick someone off, and it reminds you repeatedly, this is a slow twitch guy. You watch Sean Jelly do it, and you go, why is this guy not playing a very skinny power forward in the SEC for Kentucky or something? Because his feet work really well. That allows him to repeat really well. He throws strikes. The stuff is solid. It's not exceptional, but a solid back-end starter. I love the Sean Jelly pick. Seattle Mariners rolling along here. Logan Gilbert and Josh Stowers, 14th pick and then the 54th pick. Logan Gilbert, this is exactly around the area that we thought he should go. I love Stetson pitchers. The Stetson pitcher track record is excellent. And Logan Gilbert very much fits in with that. The stuff was really good, then it backed up a little bit, then it got back to really good again. So, again, you look at a Mariners system that needs help, Logan Gilbert's the guy who can give help right away. He can step in, and really he's one of their best prospects right away. The Josh Stowers pick, I'm a little bit more leery of. He had a great end of the season. The last couple of weeks he's been exceptional. That being said, before that he was good, not great. There is some speed there. There's some defense. The power, he hit, I believe, 9 home runs this year. Almost all of that came in this power binge he's had recently. But overall, I think it's more 45s and 50s, and with a few 55s than more than that. He does go 54th overall. Well-rounded player coming out of a Louisville program that has a pretty good track record. A lot of those things to like, but 54, I may have taken a little bit later. But again, they don't pay me to make these picks because they're not stupid. St. Louis Cardinals, 3 picks: Nolan Gorman, Griffin Roberts, Luken Baker. You like power, then you like the Cardinals draft, because Nolan Gorman could have gone top 10, one of the best power bats in the high school class. Is he going to? Didn't have as good a spring. If he'd have had the spring that everyone had hoped they would see, then he would have been a top 10 pick. But to get him at 19, you're getting a really good power bat at 19. Has a chance to stay at 3rd as well. Griffin Roberts. Okay, well, what do you want him to do? How quickly do you want him to move? He's a fastball slider guy. The slider's one of the best sliders in the draft class. There's a lot of belief. He's been a reliever at Wake Forest before. This year as a starter. There's a lot of belief that you are talking about a guy who probably ends up in the pen long term. But if he does that, he moves pretty quick. And you really could say, I'm just going to take that fastball, I'm going to take that slider, and let him kind of carve with it, see where that goes. Fascinated by the Luken Baker pick at 75. 2 years ago, in midway through his freshman year, if you said Luken Baker would be the guy picked at 75, you never would have believed it, because the power is absolutely legit. The bad luck with injuries is equally as legit. He's pretty much had most of his seasons, not most, he's had his seasons at TCU end with a variety of somewhat flukish injuries. It's not like something where he has a chronic knee or a chronic elbow or anything like that. It's breaking legs. It's a variety of things. He's taken a ball off the face that he missed a couple of games this year. So there's big power. He's not going to be a great defender. You're kind of betting on the bat, and you're going to think that he can be good enough at first base to make that work. Tampa Bay Rays, 5 picks again for the Rays, and they had money. They knew how to spend it. They knew how to use it. Matthew Liberatore, Shane McClanahan, Nick Schnell, Tyler Frank, Tanner Dodson. I'm going to spend most of the time on this little bit brief synopsis talking about the top 3 guys, because Matthew Liberatore is better than the 16th pick in this draft. You'll see that when they have the contract and he signs it and they have the announcement, and all the reality is he's going to get better than that money. That's probably how he managed to fall to 16, kind of the thing we talk about with the Royals. The 2 teams who had the most money in the draft are the Royals and the Rays. Those 2 teams managed to get guys to fall to them. Matthew Liberatore, better than the 16th pick. He'll get paid like that. They got the best high school lefty in the draft class, guy who really knows how to pitch with present stuff. A guy who, if he was linked to the Giants at 2 earlier in the year. So you get him, and then you turn around and get Shane McClanahan. You get a lefty who throws 100 at times. Some reliever risk there with McClanahan. He's already had TJ, but to get him at 31, again, a guy who at some point this year was seen as a top 10 pick potentially. There's a little bit of reliever risk, but it's a good reliever. I mean, it'd be a really, really good reliever. Lefty who throws 100, who has some idea of where it's going. Again, they're probably going to pay him more than what you would expect at pick 31. And they follow up Nick Schnell, who has as good a season in the high school ranks as pretty much anyone who carries a bat. Incredible season in the Indianapolis area. A lot of power there, some athleticism too. Tyler Frank, a little bit more of a, they go the college shortstop route. Again, when you have 5 picks, kind of nice you get to do this. They go Tyler Frank. They go Tanner Dodson, who's an interesting kind of versatile dude himself, but going to be a right-hander for them. Again, you look at it overall and you say, this is a Liberatore, McClanahan, Schnell. If they don't get much of anything tomorrow, you'd still go thumbs up on that draft, because they got picks that you're not supposed to be able to get at 16. 3 to go. Texas Rangers, Cole Winn, Owen White. Love the Cole Winn pick. We've written about extensively this spring about the dangers of drafting high school pitchers in the first round. One of the things that we had a lot of front office officials say is what, as an industry, we've gotten too enamored with drafting off the radar gun. We need to see guys who can pitch, who aren't just going out for showcase 2-3 innings, shoving, and then sitting down. Cole Winn can really pitch. Cole Winn faced everyone pretty much. He faced all comers this spring, and he dominated them all. NHSI, he was awesome. Boris Classic, he was awesome. Pitching in the CIF, which is, as Southern Cal, SoCal, the most competitive, one of the most competitive high school baseball areas in the country, if not the most, he was better than everyone he faced. You love that pick at 15. That would have been quite, if he could have gone 2 to the Giants, as the rumors we had at some point. But you love it at 15. They come back with Owen White, spread that risk around. You get Cole Winn, and then you get Owen White, who's an upside play. You put them together. Again, the Rangers love upside. Cole Winn has upside too, but Cole Winn has upside in a little bit safer package than most high school pitchers because he really knows how to pitch. Blue Jays go Jordan Groshans at 12, Griffin Conine at 52. Groshans was, again, when talking about high school bats, he was a mid to late first round high school bat. They get him at 12, maybe a little higher than we thought, but not by much. I do want to talk about Griffin Conine, though, a little bit more, because Griffin Conine is fascinating because coming out of the Cape last summer, Griffin Conine was an easy middle of the first round pick probably. Had a terrible start to the spring at Duke, and teams, he kind of fell because of that. He's really heated up over the last month. He's really heated up today. Still playing. Duke advanced to Super Regional today. I believe Conine hit 3 home runs today. Obviously, that did not play into the evaluation here, but he did hit them. And son of a big leaguer, it's bat first, bat and power. The defense you're hoping is going to be okay in the outfield, but again, to get that guy at 52, you have to feel pretty good about that because there's some potential value there. And we'll wrap this up as far as this 30-team analysis with the Nats. Mason Denneberg, Tim Cate. Mason Denneberg, we've had the link to the Nats. It's one of the ones we got right. Again, high upside play, but a guy who has some present feel as well. Yes, the high school prep pitching, the prep right-hander demographic is risky. You're taking on some risk there. The Nationals are a team that generally seem willing to take on some risk. You follow that up with Tim Cate. Tim Cate's fascinating to me because Nationals are, we keep getting questions. Hey, do the Nationals have bullpen help coming up? Do they have bullpen help coming up? Tim Cate's been hurt a lot this spring, but if he's healthy and you move him to the pen, it's a fastball-curveball combo that could move really quick. Now, I don't know. A lot of times we predict guys are going to make it to the big leagues right away, and the last time I really think you've seen that kind of happen was Brandon Finnegan. It doesn't happen very often. Probably next year is still, even as a reliever, is more realistic for Cate than this year. But if there's guys who could do it, Tim Cate is one of the few guys you could see end up in a big league bullpen in September, October. And the thing that is working for him more than some of these other guys is because he was injured, he doesn't have as many innings on his arm this spring as some of the other guys. It's hard to do that if you already have 110 innings in your college season. Tim Cate doesn't have 110 innings right now. So that is our 30 teams rolling through it, one after another after another. I will try to call up the Facebook Live here and see if we have any questions. We have slow internet. That's what we have. But while it's doing that, I will. I'll just summarize by also, obviously, we still have 2 more days of the draft, and the key thing I would say with those 2 days is there's a lot more to go. So be aware of that. Again, drafts are not. Do not summarize a draft based on just today, because it's a 40-round strategy, but especially it's a 10-round strategy. Some teams have put all their money into today, and they'll go senior, 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 senior tomorrow. Other teams are spreading their money around, and they're still going to be taking big money guys or bigger money guys tomorrow. And some of those are going to end up taking a big money guy or 2 on day 3, 11th round on, and still sign them. So there's still a lot going on there. Okay, so I'm going to hit some of these questions now. Mark Uloa, what kind of big league numbers do you see for Nick Madrigal? Do you think the Sox try him at shortstop? I think they absolutely try him at shortstop. I think he ends up moving off that eventually. Although, again, Paul DeYoung's playing shortstop in the big leagues, and I never would have imagined that. So it depends on what you're looking for. Wilmer Flores played big league shortstop in the World Series. Never would have imagined that. It depends on what you need. It depends on what you're looking for. I do think he ends up fitting more at second base, though, than he does at short. And what kind of big league numbers? High average with modest power. Again, a 310 average or better in his better years. Not outside of the question to me. Okay. John Urkel asks, you're no doubt about it, stone cold guarantee choice for the Tigers leading off tomorrow is, I'm going to have to punt on that question. Check on that back on that tomorrow morning. I haven't even given any thought to that yet. We got to wrap up today before we move on to the next day. Thoughts about the Jays picks? Passed on a couple of great pitchers. Yes, but the Jays do not have as much money to spend as the Rays or the Royals do. You may have drafted Matthew Liberatore there and then found out you couldn't sign him because he was not going to sign for the price that you could pay. So you got to think about that. Allotments count as much as where you pick in these things. Overall thoughts on the Royals, Aaron? We kind of covered that a little bit, but I will say one of the key things with the Royals is they have hitters in their farm system right now. You look at it and you say, Sully Matias, Nicky Lopez, Khalil Lee, MJ Melendez, Nick Prado. Almost all the best prospects I can give you for the Royals are hitters. So they went out and got pitcher. Now, there is some risk doing that. A lot of times when teams go crazy in one demographic, it doesn't always work out. But there's the logic. There's a logic to why they're doing that. Because, again, they need pitching. It's something the Cubs did for several years there when they needed pitching. We'll see how it works out. Sean Clark, how mad should I be about Kyler Murray playing football this fall? Seems to me he's got to be underslot due to the inherent risk of playing college football. We have to see what the number is. Again, we don't know that he's getting slot at 9. If he's not getting slot, there's a lot of logic with that, for one thing. There is risk. At the same time, it is a modest risk. The Rockies did allow Kyle Parker, first-round pick, to do the same thing, and it worked out okay there. Yes, his speed is important, so if he had a knee injury or something like that. Fascinating thing to me is he really is going to need some time to turn himself into baseball shape. Football shape and baseball shape are very different. He's a quarterback, but right now his arm as an outfielder is below average. You want to see what it's going to be when he actually spends time working on it purely on baseball. Gonzo Silva, is Luke and Baker someone that should have gone to the AL as a DH? Yeah, long term, that's very likely an ending point for him, but at the same time, you draft the bat. Matt Adams, not very good first baseman. The Cardinals made that work. And if he hits, you really can live with him at first base. And if he can't play first base well enough, you trade him to the Mariners like Dan Vogelbach. Again, you work out, you let him hit, and then if he hits, those problems usually solve themselves down the road. Don Wilson, the A's got a great player. I think they actually got potentially 3 great players, or very good players at least. Kyler Murray is a high upside play. I guess that's who you're probably talking about. He absolutely is. And again, he could be one of the better players in this draft class. There's just some more risk involved. I hate to cut it off before more, but it is almost 1 a.m. and now I've got to take this and write up this analysis so we'll have it for the morning. So thank you all for being here on day 1 of the draft. Now we're into, I guess we're on day 2 of the draft now, just happening later today if you're on the East Coast like we are. The West Coast, you're still on day 1 of the draft. But, it's fun doing this. Check us all out on Twitter, on Facebook here, but mainly go to baseballamerica.com. Again, we have 750 or so scouting reports, so we're going to have scouting reports. We have scouting reports for everyone taken today. We plan to have scouting reports for everyone taken tomorrow. We plan to have scouting reports for a whole lot of guys who are taken on day 3. So we thank you for subscribing, and so long, everybody.